Blair White ends Ethan Klein, defends Jordan Peterson. I don't know. That's probably what a snazzy title. If Ethan Klein attacked by Blair White ends Ethan Klein. Everybody's ending everybody. Okay. Really like these titles. Ethan Klein thinks he's smarter than Jordan Peterson and healthier than Joe Rogan. Okay, sure, let's watch.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm feeling very virginal in this outfit today. I'm feeling very...
What is it? What a great way to start, Blair.
Very much like, you know, a bride being given off to her husband or a bride of Chucky, depending on if you fucking hate me. Let's get into it. Ethan Klein, also known as H3H3, which sounds like a highly infectious STD, has been...
Why are people so... I mean... Whatever, dude. Like, I'm not a huge fan of Ethan. I've been like trying not to cover too much of Ethan because I feel like I'm developing like a bias against him. Somebody asked me to talk about this, but it's just like, I don't know, bro. I hate all the loaded stuff. Like, you saw the titles. Ethan thinks he's smarter, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, bro.
And going off recently on two particular individuals, Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan. We're going to split this video into two halves. The first half talking about his attacks, although I would say they're more like brutal self-owns launched toward Jordan Peterson, and the second half will be his brutal self-owns on Joe Rogan. Ethan went off on Jordan Peterson on Twitter recently, and it really rubbed me the wrong way. Like, I have chafing just from reading these tweets. He also went back and deleted videos of an interview he did with Jordan Peterson from years back. In my
he left out the clips, which was weird, but okay.
opinion, out of the fear of being canceled by his own woke audience, which he does pander to, which he does and has cultivated throughout the years.
I don't think it was a fear of him getting canceled by his quote-unquote woke audience. You know, like, there's two different ways to approach this. There's the way of giving Ethan the benefit of the doubt, and then there's the way of not giving Ethan the benefit of the doubt. It's actually bizarrely difficult to give Ethan the benefit of the doubt when you watch this content from a critical perspective, honestly. It can be very difficult because I don't feel like he gives people the benefit of the doubt, and it makes you kind of want to react by saying, like, ew, like, I don't want to give you the benefit of the doubt. But, like, with the Jordan Peterson, it all centralizes around a tweet that Jordan Peterson made where he basically he had retweeted, what was his name? Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau had outlawed conversion therapy, which sounds like a great thing, and I think it is for the most part. And Jordan Peterson's like, oh, you're just grandstanding. And I can understand why somebody would look at that. I got pizza on like sauce on my pants, whatever. You could look at that and go like, oh, he's like actively advocating for conversion therapy. But I think more than anything else, it was more of like, oh, conversion therapy is already illegal. This is more of like a virtue signal. Like, look, we're great, even though it is already a practice that's not done. But more than that, I watched Jordan talk about it a little bit. And what he talked about is that it completely removes the ability to effectively provide therapy to people that might be confused about their gender. Right? That's what it comes down to. So apparently with the wording, it makes it so you can't like somebody. So there's a lot of different ways to approach this. Some people go to therapy because they might be confused about their gender. It doesn't necessarily mean they have gender dysphoria. They might just need to have a conversation. Like, I don't understand something. Like, oh, I don't know if I'm how I identify. And I think that the language makes it so that you can't really suggest that you might not be trans, which can be bad. You know, I understand why you might make you nervous because there can be very bad acting therapists in any direction. It could be in the in the progressive direction too. Some therapists do advocate for people to be like, oh, you're trans, even if they're not. I have a friend that's a detransitioner. We talked about it. I'm not saying that that's the experience of everybody. I'm just saying that it happens in both ways. But then I've talked about it too, somebody who does therapy with trans people who diagnoses them with gender dysphoria. It was like a therapist and helps treat them. And they're like, yeah, not everybody with gender dysphoria needs to transition per se. Sometimes somebody with gender dysphoria, they may need to actually, for their treatment specifically, it might help them to identify as their born gender or their born sex rather than to transition. It's not everybody, but it's a select few, and that could impede on the the ability to properly help people like that. So I think that's where he was coming from. He just didn't get into detail. That's one of the problems with Twitter. And then I think Ethan took that as like, oh, he's trying to say that conversion therapy is good. The problem I have with that is like, as much as you may not like Jordan Peterson, and he's an interesting guy, and his thought process is not normal. It's very analytical and it's very logical. And I think that it's not emotional enough, but like my first assumption wasn't like, oh, he must hate trans people. My first assumption is like, why would you say this? Like, what do you mean? And Ethan, as somebody who sat down with Jordan, you think that he would understand what he's saying better. He has a better understanding of Jordan. He knew who he was. He knew what kind of person he was. And so like it comes off more as a virtue signal. So it's either that, either Ethan is virtue signaling to be like, he's bad, I'm taking down his conversations, or Ethan genuinely thought that he was supporting conversion therapy and he found it disgusting. Now, I don't know which one it is. Giving him the benefit of the doubt, maybe he actually didn't understand what Jordan was saying, but that shows like a fundamental lack of critical thought. And it means like, honestly, if that's the first assumption that you get as a content creator that's trying to like really be very analytical about things, you probably shouldn't be doing content that's very analytical about things. I'm not trying to be rude, but if you didn't look at that and go like, why would Jordan say that? Knowing who Jordan Peterson is, you know who he is. If you didn't think about it in a more critical way, then like maybe you shouldn't be talking about this type of content, right? It would have been better. He could have deleted and been like, hey, you said these things, I want you to clear it. Well, I don't think he should have deleted it at all. I think he should have just extended his hand and said, hey, like, let's talk about it. Like, why would you say this? So there's something there that I don't particularly care for from the Ethan response. So, yeah.
Because Ethan, in my opinion, as sort of like a casual, every once in a while viewer of his stuff, is definitely one of those people who shapeshifts into whatever is trendy and socially acceptable at the time in terms of his content. He used to
maybe. I feel like it's just such a watered down. The problem I have with Blaire White saying this is that like she does the exact same thing as Ethan, just not in the socially acceptable space. We're going to pull out paint because I just like doing it. Right? So the way that the internet has camped itself out is like you have people on the right, basically. We probably should put them actually on the right. You have people that are like more left, and then you have like a whole spectrum here, and then you have people on the right. Oftentimes, nuance is dead. It just doesn't exist, bro. This is the space I try to sit in, is a nuanced area, not in the middle, somewhere. I try to look at things and try to like do the right thing and bring a commonsensical perspective or a more like reasonable, rational perspective. Thing is that like, yeah, the more politically correct thing is on the left, whereas the not politically correct thing is more on the right. And a lot of times people get stuck in their spaces and they kind of just cater to this audience. And a lot of times the reason they do that is because an individual, like individual here, let's say they start out more like, let's say this is the middle point right here. Let's say they start off as like a little bit like right-leaning, moderate kind of, because most people are more moderately built. I don't know. Like, for instance, my family's very, like, not very conservative. A lot of my family is conservative. They're all pro-choice. They understand like welfare and stuff. They're just a little bit more conservative. Like, they have different values. They're like pro-trans and pro-gay people. It's not like they're not like jumping for joy, but they're not like, I hate gay people, they shouldn't be able to get married. They're like, yeah, it makes sense that they get married. It's just not a topic that they really talk about. It doesn't really have an impact on them, right? What happens is like online figures will say something. They'll be like, hey, I have a particular thing. And it might be ignorant. And then what happens is this side will shit on them and push them farther right. Absolutely happens all the time. And because people on the right usually will be like, yeah, come on in, because they're looking for people. Because there's no who the fuck wants to be a conservative, right? This happens in the other direction too, I believe. I just think it happens more in this space because this is the more comfortable narrative, is like whatever like the more like progressive leaning narrative is, right? And we understand that because things need to change. It's just the speed at which they change in the conversation that we have, right? So I'm sure it happens both ways. I feel like I see it more here where leftists push more people to the right than like conservatives push more people to the left, you know? So yeah, I mean, Blair does this very similar thing, but the thing too is that Blair isn't really this person. Blair says edgy shit intentionally and kind of just aligns themselves with this shit. Although they seem to be a little bit more moderate, like back in the day, but maybe not so much. But anyway,
to be way edgier.
I love that I can just say though. I love saying
way more anti-SJW, anti-woke, whatever you want to call it, whatever.
Well, I mean, like, people can change. And the social narrative changed. Like that was more acceptable back then. It's a little bit weird though because that was much more acceptable back then, and we move on from it. We understand that. Like even 5 years ago is wildly different than it is now. It's like a weird thing to always bring up, like when he said bad things. I don't think it's a good argument. If anything, it's a good argument as to why are we continuously canceling someone like Shane Dawson. I know he did a lot of terrible shit, but they were like really edgy jokes, and he stopped the behavior before. You know what I mean? Like he also apologized. He stopped the behavior. It's interesting who gets picked, picked and chose who gets to get the forgiveness and who doesn't get the forgiveness. But yeah, I mean, he apologized for that. You know, if you don't think it was genuine, that's fine. But continuously bring up his past isn't exactly helpful. If anything, it should show more empathy as to like have conversations with people that don't agree with him, like Jordan Peterson.
You want to put on it. And now he's definitely the exact opposite. When it was more popular and trendy to be anti-SJW, edgy, whatever, you can bet your ass he was that. And now that it's more popular to be woke and super politically correct, you can bet your ass he's that. And
the only argument that I'll strengthen her, the only way out which I'll strengthen her argument is I remember something that really bothered me. It was when I was watching like an Ethan video somebody made about Ethan. I disagreed with I think it was from Turkey Tom. I disagree with most of it. There was a point where Ethan had criticized Leafy for being too edgy and a bully. Which I mean, I agree with. From what I've seen, he's too edgy and he's a bully. And Ethan called him out, and he was still in the more like edgy like space. And he got really negative reception for his call out, so he walked it off. He's like, "Sorry guys, my bad." So to me, that does suggest like, yeah, regardless of what sphere Ethan's in, he does seem to like kind of pander to his audience. Like maybe he's afraid of losing people, maybe he's very gullible, or he's easily like manipulated. Maybe he has a more malleable mind. I don't really know. Because like he should have doubled down on that Leafy thing, because he made the right call originally, but then he walked it back. So I don't think that I think that Ethan is just like the victim of the space that he is in. I don't think he stands firm on a particular belief. I don't think he thinks critically about them. I think that he's like, oh, this makes sense. Like, and it makes sense. Like, let's say the term females. Now there was like a thing where people were like, oh, and then I fucking like I reacted to it, and I reacted like way too aggressively. My wife after the stream, people were like, what are you talking? Why are you being so aggressive? And my wife was even like, what the fuck was that after stream? I was like, sorry. I was getting like too worked up, you know. Sorry, guys. Anyway, like the reality is like most women don't care about the word females. It's about the way you use it. And Ethan was like, yeah, it's bad. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. But if you think critically about it, most people just don't give a shit. It's the way that you use words that make them disrespectful. And Ethan kind of just accepted it. He was like, yeah, this is bad. Let's stop. And it's well-intentioned, I think. That's the thing, is I think Ethan's well-intentioned. But I think that he's I don't think he like really critically thinks into a lot of things necessarily. And I think he's a little susceptible to the space that he's in.
These types of people always give the excuse of, well, I've evolved, I've grown, I've learned more. It's funny how they always evolve.
Bro, Blair White, you literally grew from a man to a woman. I'm not trying to be an asshole, but how can the fucking you not accept the excuse that somebody changed when you literally changed your entire person? I'm all trans affirming, you're very hot, all that, great stuff, but like how the fuck are you gonna how are you gonna deny somebody's transition when you literally transitioned yourself? I don't get it.
Evolve, grow, and learn more in the exact direction that gets them more popularity or is more socially acceptable, never in the opposite way. Like, they never all of a sudden have more controversial opinions or become more edgy. It's always with the win.
What about you, Steven Crowder? I don't understand. What are you talking about? Like, that happens sometimes too.
You know what I mean? So anyway, Ethan tweeted, years ago, I interviewed Jordan Peterson before I was very familiar with his politics. He was an interesting guy.
I feel like that part's not honest, because Ethan knew who he was. You know, Ethan just wasn't really engaged in politics. And so he had probably a more like impartial mind. Is that what you say? Or is it I don't know. He had like a less biased mind probably back then, because he wasn't really engaged in politics. And like Jordan Peterson's a very intelligent guy, probably just went over his head. I think what Ethan thinks is that he's doing his best to educate himself, which he probably is. I think that's what the problem is. I think Ethan is doing the best to educate himself on topics. And then as he grows and thinks about these things, he looks back and goes like, oh, Jordan Peterson bad. But I just don't think that it's as simple as that. Because in a lot of left, like progressive spaces, anything remotely conservative is a curse word. You have to understand. I mean, so is leftist, but you know, so that's one of the problems too, probably.
That's who I enjoyed sitting with. So right off the bat, this is just a lie. Jordan Peterson, at the time that Ethan interviewed him, was only popular for his takes on trans issues, which are definitely perceived to be controversial by people who are more left of center. So this was literally his claim to fame. Jordan Peterson became known because of his opposition to Bill C-16 in Canada, which we can do a whole video about Bill C-16, but the long and short of it was Jordan Peterson's perspective was that people would start being fined or jailed for misgendering people, for using the wrong pronouns, and the opposite side believed it was just a bill that was to increase the human rights of trans people. That's the long and short of it. So,
well, both those things may be true. I think it's my understanding is that C-16 doesn't put anybody in jail for misgendering. It has to be like an additional crime on top of it. But yeah, that's a rational fear to have, to make sure you're like, hey, don't police my speech. I think you should properly gender people, but I also don't think that it should be like a law that you shouldn't be put in jail for misgendering somebody. It's like a slippery slope. Like if I look at you and you look like a guy, hey, what's going on, bro? I used to call everybody bro, though. I even call girls bro. I was like, oh, you're misgendering me. I'm sorry, dude. Fuck. Sorry, ma'am. I don't know. Because I call everybody dude and bro, you know? That's what's going to happen. I'm going to, you know, I'm trying to change those into the gender neutral terms, dude and bro. You know what I'm saying? That's the way that I think it should work.
This is what he was known for at the time. Ethan had to have known that this is what he was known for, was controversial takes on trans issues. So this, like, I didn't know anything about him. Like, first of all, you probably shouldn't be interviewing people you know nothing about. And second of all, that was the only thing people did know about him at the time. So what the fuck are you talking about? The truth is he was fully aware of Jordan Peterson's politics. He just wanted the massive amount of views that this interview was going to bring him, and it did. And to this day, any interview Jordan Peterson does is going to get a massive amount of views.
Hey, get on your grind, dog. You know, get that paper, Ethan. Hey, I'll do an interview with Jordan Peterson. Fuck yeah, dude. He's also an interesting guy.
Very popular man. So you wanted the views, you wanted the money, but of course you don't have the integrity to say that. You're going to lie and say, well, I didn't know much about him. Girl, bye. He goes on to say, but especially now, I can see he's a dangerous gateway to alt-right, transphobia, and COVID misinfo. I removed both interviews today.
See, my perspective is that if you, like, I don't like this whole alt-right pipeline because I feel like it's just this thing we prescribe somebody that is like, everybody's alt-right if they're not left, it feels like. And I feel like we are all, I'm saying that a lot, I feel like it's always like, oh, he's a gateway to the alt-right pipeline. Somebody conservative is a gateway to the alt-right pipeline. I feel like leftists trying to cancel somebody, that's a gateway to the alt-right pipeline as well. You know, like when somebody receives a tremendous amount of hate from one side, they're going to go the opposite direction, and then they're going to look for like the comfort in another direction. Hassan thinks I'm alt-right. Does he though? I don't think he does. I don't think Hassan knows me at all. Hassan probably is like a little horny when he sees me because he's like, wow, this guy's kind of big. He's kind of sexy. He could fuck the shit out of me. I could, but that's for another time. I feel like leftists canceling people, that's a part of the alt-right pipeline too. Instead of education culture is better. Have a conversation with him. Try to see what he's saying. When somebody makes like a very nuanced point, it's very easy to take them out of context. So, you know, and it can be very difficult. And I'm finding this more and more difficult to communicate a very, very, very nuanced point. Like I tried to communicate. I had like an issue where I was like, okay, I'm really trying to get people to understand this particular thing I'm saying, but they're not getting it. And my wife was like, listen, you're just not, she's like, I know what you're saying, right? I know what you're saying, but you're not saying it the right way. You're doing a very bad job communicating what you're trying to say. And like, I have the struggles as well, right? I'll just say that was on like my CNMA video. Like she was like, you're doing a really, I watched your videos after. She's like, you're doing a horrible job with communicating what you're trying to say. And I understand why people are reacting the way they are. And I was like, fuck, okay. It's very difficult to communicate a very nuanced point sometimes. So, yeah.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the man who ran a podcast with Trisha Paytas is clutching his pearls over harmful speech.
Don't be don't hate us the Paytas, bro. Yeah, you probably should though.
Hitler can't be all bad if he had this big following.
Found out about the
True.
I had no idea.
I really love movies and books about the Holocaust.
What's the stereotype about Jews? Like my cheap Jew boyfriend with a big nose. I don't say that.
Jewish people are cheap.
But again, he didn't care because Trisha was making him a lot of money because at the time she was in the public's favor. So
well, that's like a conversation, man, because there is a conversation to have there. There is a bit of a point there. Like Trisha wasn't great in the past, and then Ethan had her on because she was interesting, honestly. The two of them were great together. You know, I think Ethan knew it was going to bring him popularity, and it's like, you know, smart business move. I don't think he treated her like shit. I think he tried to be like her friend and everything, so I'm not going to give him like that. But he definitely did ignore like the past shit that she did. I think the thing is, though, is that genuinely speaking, what am I saying? I think that is the better conversation to have is that if Ethan didn't disconnect from her, which he rightfully should have, people wouldn't have shit on her for the bad things that she did because they would have been like, okay, she's grown as a person. And honestly, she probably has. Well, maybe not, actually. I don't even know if she has. I think that if anything, she's gone like back down. And I think that like after Ethan, she just spiraled down because like she had nothing else left to do but fucking become like this hated figure. I don't know. But yeah, okay.
So not only does this condemnation of Jordan Peterson that no one asked for, by the way, like no one was trying to cancel him for it. Not only does it make Ethan look about as spineless
well, the tweet was a little bit bizarre.
As a jellyfish, his attacks on Peterson are also just not valid. First of all, if Jordan Peterson is the greatest sin, if Jordan Peterson is the gateway to being alt-right or being hateful, which by the way, I didn't know it was 2016, we were still using terms like alt-right, but okay. If someone as frankly apolitical as Jordan Peterson, because if you watch his content, he is almost always apolitical. He speaks.
I don't think so at all. I think he's rather political, but okay.
People on the right wing, I know that's such a scary thing. He definitely like engages with them, but his actual content in his lectures are almost always, with some exceptions, apolitical. The majority of what Peterson talks about is self-help, self-improvement, getting your life together.
That actually might be true because we have a habit of like amplifying people's worst moments on the internet. Everybody does it. They'll be like, "Oh, look, somebody like Joe Rogan, for instance, right? We criticize Joe Rogan when he spreads vaccine misinformation, but we don't talk about him anytime after that for the most part." So Joe Rogan, let's say he does like what does he do? Like a day, every day he does a podcast. I don't know how long it is, maybe 2 hours. Let's say it's like 2 hours. So like this guy's making 14 hours of content a week, right? And like, or like how many? What is that a month? What is that times 4? Oh my god, 56 hours a month. But like we'll talk about like a 15-minute segment that he does once a month. You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah.
Philosophy, psychology, and he dips into politics sometimes, but to act as if that's the like whole sum of who and what he does, and then to say that it's radicalizing people or some sort of gateway, like we can just as easily say, Ethan, that you're a gateway towards what? Far leftism, communism, radicalism on the other side. Why is it only true ever of people right of center that they're too radical? And if Jordan Peterson,
if anything, I think it's just a gateway to push people more to the right. But
is a gateway towards hate, what the fuck is this?
I love saying fat.
And I want to be very clear.
Bro, Ethan's so based, bro. Me too. Just kidding.
This was obviously done in a comedic context. I'm not one of those people that thinks that context does not matter when it comes to slurs or curse words or whatever.
What?
Obviously, I'm not one of those people that think.
Saying fat.
And I want to be very clear that this was obviously done in a comedic context. I'm not one of those people that thinks that context does not matter when it comes to slurs or curse words or whatever. Obviously, he's not calling someone that. It's done in a comedic
He also did apologize.
context. I'm not personally mad. But going by your own standards here, if the benign, apolitical, self-help stuff Jordan Peterson does is a gateway to hate, then again, how can you claim that isn't? And perhaps Ethan's
Well, I mean, again, he apologized. All right.
apologized for this, and if so, he definitely deserves to be forgiven. However, you just can't claim that isn't. And perhaps Ethan's apologized for this, and if so, he definitely deserves to be forgiven. However,
You know, my thing, Blair, is that you just shit on, and like I agree with the point. You shit on Ethan for when he said like I didn't know what kind of person Jordan was at the time. Fair, because he definitely knew. And you're like, he definitely knew. He should be more educated if he didn't know anyway. Blah blah blah. And then like you're talking about Ethan, and you're just pretending not to be educated on the fact that he has apologized like 100 times. Like, come on, you're like this is a little sussy. What are you talking about, girl? Like, what the fuck? Like, you know he apologized. You're intentionally ignoring that he apologized for it so that you can push this idea that he didn't apologize for it, and then you play plausible deniability when you're like, well, if he did apologize, he deserves to be forgiven, but I don't think he apologized. You know, bro, come on.
you just can't throw stones in a glass house. Let's move on to the transphobia accusation. He said that he's a gateway to transphobia, right? He said, your mischaracterization of Bill C-16 resulted in a surge of transphobia. The bill was created to add trans people as a protected group against hate crimes. Using the wrong pronoun would not result in anyone going to jail. In fact, to this day, 0 people have gone to jail. So don't
there's actually a lot of people who've gone to jail, Ethan. I don't know what you're talking about, bro. Like, you ever been to a jail, dude? Jeez, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
don't even get me
I think this is in the context that Jordan's like, why did you stop being my friend, basically? And Ethan's like, because of all these things, you know?
started with who was responsible for a surge in transphobia, because I have a pretty long list of people that Ethan would probably consider to be political allies that are actually responsible for people becoming annoyed or hateful towards trans people. And I know he would never condemn them because they're on his side politically.
All right, let's hear it, bro.
Because again,
sis,
no concept that anyone on his side of the political aisle could be doing anything wrong. Not to mention, people have been put in
so you're just not going to say the list? Come on, what are you talking about? You said you have a whole list. Tell me the fucking list.
jail for misgendering in Canada. You have here
Canada man jailed for calling his biological feminine baby dies. Let's see. Let's look at that. So that let's see. Jailed for calling his bio. I don't understand. What does biological feminine mean? Okay. Wow, we're definitely alternative media sources. Okay. In a tragic case, a man was jailed for referring to his biological female child as daughter. One father of a teenage girl has been jailed in court by biological daughter and referring to the pronouns she and her. Was found to be okay. Oh, he was found to be in contempt of court. At the heart of Hooligan's miseries is a gender non-conforming 14-year-old biological female who, I don't know, as a transgender, refers to use male pronouns. Hooligan repeatedly called the person his daughter, even if the corpus. Okay, this is a little bit different from just calling him that. It sounds like they were in a court setting and they asked the daughter, the person. Sorry, even I'm doing it. The individual decided, hey, this is what I want to be called. The father continuously called them she or her. The court was like, you have to stop or you'll be in contempt of court. And then they eventually, I guess, arrested him. He was jailed probably for like a day. It's whatever, for contempt of court. I don't think that that's the same thing as just simply misgendering. You know, I don't know the specifics for violating a court order that banned him from speaking publicly about his son's gender trans. Wait, a Canadian man was. This is different. A Canadian man was arrested this week after violating a court order that banned him from speaking publicly about his son's gender transition. Wait, so this is different then? Is this the same person? Is this the same person? Because that's a whole other skladoo. They might. I'm so bad with faces. Is that the same? Wait, hold on. Somebody's in here. Y'all need to come kick it with Real Streamer and I. Read all chats. Love y'all. Okay, let's check it out, bro. We'll do a little intermission since you decided to invade my stream and advertise. So let's see. Okay. You guys are playing NBA 2K. This is the stream that you decided to advocate, promote in my stream? This is it? And you have followers only chat on? Bro, come on. The fuck out of here with that weak ass shit. Anyway. Okay, so this is a little different too. The Canadian man was arrested after violating a court order that banned him from speaking about his son's gender transition publicly. That's somewhat common in the courts. Teenager was born. Okay, father. The father repeatedly began litigation against the teen's mother after learning of the transition, and the matter was secret. Okay. High court order that is not to stand with. Okay, so the dad high court order that the dad was not to stand in the way of the 15-year-old girl's hormone therapy and try to better understand the dysphoria. Okay. The outlet reported he was also told to stop speaking on the media about the case and warned that the public attempts to undermine his child's wishes as a form of violence. Okay, so it sounds like he had a court order to not talk about the case, and he didn't do that, which is somewhat normal in these kind of, like, any case. So, like, yeah, I feel like whatever.
A Canadian man jailed for calling his biologically female child as daughter. And is that something that's widespread? No. However, if you're going to make
it's not even spread in there.
The claim that 0 people have been jailed for misgendering in Canada, there's one right there. So
that's a little bit less. It's not quite misgendering. It's a little bit more than that. But thank you, Blair, for reading the article that you. If you just read your own article, it would have been like, oh, okay.
You're just factually incorrect with that as well. He also accused Jordan Peterson of spreading COVID misinfo. Let's move on to that part of the accusation. So this happened after Jordan Peterson actually defended Joe Rogan after a list of 270 doctors condemned him for COVID misinformation, which, by the way, the word misinformation is almost always code for information I don't like, by the way, but that.
I don't know if that's true, but okay.
However, he was absolutely right to defend Joe Rogan because, as it turns out, only 87 of those 270 doctors were actually doctors. The list. That's
it. That's the whole. Wait, why would that be the? I don't know what Jordan said, but like, here's what I know. If 270 people came forward and said like, "Hey, Joe Rogan saying the wrong thing about COVID, doctors," and it's like, well, actually, not all of them were doctors. That doesn't prove that he was speaking misinformation. I'm just saying, I feel like it doesn't mean that he wasn't doing it. I feel like not all of them were doctors or something. I remember seeing that as well, but he has pushed some misinformation. Fortunately, though, when he does get checked on it, like, he does change his perspective. Like, he got checked pretty hard by like one of his friends in there, and like he looked like a sussy baka, which was good. You know, it's a good thing Joe Rogan talks to people that don't agree with him, so that he can change and better himself as a person.
This was full of consultants, veterinarians, a social worker, podcast hosts, and some doctors, yes, but clearly,
87 doctors, but okay.
It's just an attempt to slander Joe Rogan. It's just a baseless attack to say 270 doctors united against him, when in fact, that's just incorrect. So Jordan Peterson was objectively correct to defend Joe Rogan in that situation. And
well, how did he defend him? I'm just
COVID
curious.
misinfo coming from Ethan Klein is pretty rich, considering he said that the protests in the summer of 2020 didn't contribute at all to COVID, which you can agree with the protest and you can be on the side of the protest, but you can't deny that in the midst of a pandemic, Did
she just censor pandemic? Yeah, I mean, this is probably wrong. This doesn't even make any common sense. Like, protests probably did increase COVID. You could argue that it was justifiable, whatever, but like, come on, you have a bunch of people packed together. You know that fucking shit's spreading. You know, whatever. This seems more like a little bit of like a virtue signal, because there's no way that this didn't increase COVID. But, or you know what I mean? Like, you get a bunch of people spread getting together. Come on. Okay.
Thousands of people getting in close contact in every major city in the country didn't really affect anything. Like, really? Really? But we know when it's politically convenient, your side can do literally anything. We got it. So you can poke holes in Ethan's arguments all day long, as we've been doing, but what does all this really mean, right? It means, like I said, first of all, he is afraid of his own woke audience canceling him, so he's trying to, in my opinion, get ahead of it and condemning him and saying, look, I don't actually support Jordan Peterson anymore, please don't cancel me, which again, spineless. And I have to just say, on a human level, Jordan Peterson didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve these attacks from Ethan. Jordan Peterson, from everything I can see,
what was that edit like?
Jordan Peterson didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve these attacks from Ethan. Jordan
It's just like a weird spot. You can get him when he's crouching down.
Peterson, from everything I can see, seems like a genuinely very nice man who helps a lot of people and has changed a lot of people's lives for the better. There's a huge problem in society, and people have to have such blinders on to ever see someone like Jordan Peterson as extreme. It's the same as people who call me far right. I did a stream with Joe Rogan on Timcast a few months ago, and I think it was Vice wrote an article calling me far right. If you think, I'm gonna speak in third person and kind of just invoke the sort of like public perception there is of me, like the sort of public figure version of my being, right? If you think Blair White is far right, you have an extremely childlike view.
Let me tell you something, Blair. You're far wrong to not have an OnlyFans. That's all I'm going to say, bro.
An ignorant view
you know
of the actual opinions people on the actual far right hold. If you think I'm far right or Jordan Peterson is extreme, like you have no clue. And that's okay if you don't have any clue, but stop slandering people because you don't have a clue. So moving on to his attacks on Joe Rogan. So Joe, as of late, has been hosting doctors on his podcast and having questions and conversations.
Well, I think he had like Dr. Malone on there, who was apparently removed from Twitter for vaccine misinfo. Dr. Malone commonly says that he's like the creator of like the mRNA like vaccine or whatever, or technology, when he was like a contributor. They gave up the research, I think, like when he was in his heyday in general, and they repicked it back up. He had some contributions, but you know, like he's as much as a contributor to the mRNA vaccine as I am to the water in the toilet bowl after I take a piss. You know, there's already plenty of water in the toilet bowl. I piss some extra in there. Like, yeah, it's nice. There's more water in there, but which water was more helpful? Probably the water that was probably not the one that I pissed into the toilet, right? So yeah, get ice cream on the way home, baby, from Coils. Rocky Road.
About vaccines that honestly are just not questions and conversations you see in mainstream media, which unfortunately
True.
is the lens and the standards by which most people see.
Check this out, guys. Here's some vaccine information. Just get the fucking vaccine and wear a fucking mask and just shut the fuck up. Like, you know what I mean? And if you're not going to wear the vaccine, that's fine, but be safe. Just shut the fuck up. You know, like I'm over it. You know, you should probably get the vaccine. Nothing's probably going to happen. They're very low risks, okay? And if you're not, that's totally fine. Be safe. Don't be an asshole. Walk around with your hand sanitizer. Keep your fucking mask on. All you dumb fucks are like, oh, I don't want to wear a mask either. Like, this is my problem. It's like the people that are skeptical of the vaccine, I get it, because I used to be one of those people until I got it. But I never advocated against it. I was just like, hey, I'm a little bit nervous about it. But like the same people, most of the people though who were nervous about it, they didn't even want a mask. Like, I was always like, go for the mask, bro. That was it. They just don't want to do things. That's it. They just don't want to do things. Most of those people seem like they're people who just don't want to fucking do things. All right. Like I said, I have a very conservative family before. Not very conservative. I have a conservative family. I don't know if this was this segment, but whatever. All of them got the vaccine before me. And I'm the most progressive person. Well, not the most, but probably one of the most progressive people. I was just nervous about it, bro. I'm a little bit of a paranoid person. You know what I'm saying? Like, some people are just fucking psychopaths.
The world. So he's had Dr. Robert Malone on, who is a virologist and the chief architect of the mRNA technology, as well as cardiologist Peter McCullough, and he's having conversations. He's asking questions. So just, if you watch Joe Rogan's show, you would know that he doesn't claim to be any sort of expert on vaccines or viruses or anything. He simply asks questions. In fact, I went to one of his shows recently here in Austin, and he opened up by saying how stupid it was that people really saw him as some sort of health expert, that you have to be an idiot to take health advice.
You went to his show? Like a stand-up show?
From him, because he isn't an expert. He's simply having...
You think that Blair White is Joe Rogan's sneaky link? That'd be kind of interesting. I'd watch that.
Conversations, which...
I actually feel like they would fuck, bro. I feel like the two of them are fucking. I have no proof, but I think Joe Rogan and Blair White are fucking. This is a very quick question, though. It's, I'm just wondering, did Blair White get bottom surgery? No, I don't think that she did. All right, then that's good. Because, like, listen, I'm not trying to be transphobic. Me personally, though, you know, what's the point? You know, I'm just saying, dude. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be, but like, I mean, like, if I was gonna do it, a trans woman, You know what I mean? I'm not quite into men, but I don't mind the wiggler. You know what I'm saying, bro? So I feel like, hey, well, how am I going to experience the wiggler? You know, that's all I'm saying, bro. That's all I'm saying.
In a sane world should be allowed. Joe has never once told people to not get vaccinated. And we talked about this even
well, he kind of did a little bit. He did kind of say that something along the lines of like, you don't really. Hold on, my wife asked me in the chat, "Do you want ice cream?" And I said yes. And then she fucking texted me because she didn't hear my thing. Whatever. Anyway, he kind of said something along the lines of like, if you're young, you have no need to get the vaccine, blah, 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 blah. Like, yeah, younger people are less susceptible to it, but it's more about the spread of the of COVID. So like young people should get it so that they don't spread it to old people, et cetera, et cetera. You know, so he did kind of, and then he walked it back. I think the next episode, he's like, you know what? I should have been more intelligent. I didn't really like, you know, you're supposed to get the vaccine for blah, 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 blah. That's my understanding. So he kind of did.
I was on his show. He's never told anyone that. He simply said that each individual person.
Well, you were on a show? How many shows? All of them? Like, how would you? He's like, I was on a show. He never said that to me. Like, well, so let's say he's on 1,000 shows. What is that? Like 0.1% of the shows you've been on? Yeah, I was on one of the shows. She never said that to me. That means that he's never said that before. It's like, okay, that makes perfect sense.
Should have the freedom and autonomy to make their own decisions about their own bodies and health based on their own risk-benefit analysis, which again, in a sane world, would not be radical, would not be something people should be attacking anyone for, right? He's always advocated, talk to your doctor and do what's right for you. In the meantime, I have questions. Questions should not be a sin. Questions should not be censored. We are living in a very terrifying time when you are not allowed to question things. So Ethan, who has in the past begged Joe to do his podcast, which is so typical of these very woke creators, by the way, I have a list of about 10 to 20 people who are on that sort of side of the YouTube sphere who have in the past asked me multiple times to come on their channel, work with them, kiss my ass, whatever, and then 6 months later have an I Hate Blair White video. Typical.
Well, listen, it's potentially true that Ethan wanted to be on with Joe before his like he went a little too kooky. And then but he got so upset by Joe Rogan not accepting his invitation that he said, you know what? Fuck moderates. I'm going more left. And then Ethan just fucking dove into, he's like, fuck Joe Rogan. This piece of shit didn't take me seriously. At the time, I think he was getting like 300,000 views of podcast. I'm getting 300,000 views of podcast. You motherfucker, you bitch, you know what I'm saying? And now he's so upset. He radicalized and now he hates Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is quite literally, based on this theory, this baseless theory, Joe Rogan is the creator of the alt-left pipeline. So think about that when you defend Joe Rogan next time.
Channel, work with them, kiss my ass, whatever, and then 6 months later have an I Hate Blair White video. Typical behavior of these little chihuahuas that want to bite at people's ankles and then I can't. So his attacks on Joe went as followed. Joe Rogan, who lives on elk meat, egg yolk, and human growth hormone with lungs full of tar, thinks he's healthier than everyone.
That's like, wow, nice face. I feel like he smokes weed, not cigarettes. I think I've seen him talk about that. I'd go on PEDs probably if I lifted consistently for a couple of years and I found somebody to help me do it safely, you know. And after I have kids, you know, because it does reduce your fertility, at least while you're on it. I have to talk to like what's his name? I don't remember his name. I don't know.
First of all, that's like something a 5-year-old would say. You think you're healthier than everyone. He's never said anything as stupid as that. Maybe that's how your brain perceives it because you might be stupid, Ethan. Elk meat is healthy. Egg yolk is healthy. And human growth hormone, he talked about being on TRT. He talked about taking hormones. I take hormones. I'm a very healthy person. Lots of people take hormones. Menopausal women, men, trans men. Something tells me that if he were criticizing me, he wouldn't include my use of hormones in the attacks on me. So why would you do it to Joe?
I think the hormones are a little bit different. Joe probably takes too much hormones. You know, well, just enough to elicit a response. So, but okay.
Why is it okay for someone like me to be on hormones, but not Joe? And the implication that elk meat and egg yolk is unhealthy, like, what do you live on? Dairy Queen and chicken nuggets? Joe Rogan?
Kind of. He kind of does. He eats a lot of Domino's pizza. I understand it, but Ethan isn't exactly the healthiest person. I've seen him talk about it, so.
He doesn't think he's healthier than everyone, but anyone with a set of 2 working eyes could see and chicken nuggets.
This motherfucker is such a bitch that when he got COVID, he threw the kitchen together. If you're so healthy, you just ride out like you should say a man should. I don't think he's ever said a man should ride it out. I feel like that's, I mean, we already know that's just kind of a dishonest thing that Ethan said, but okay.
Joe Rogan doesn't think he's healthier than everyone, but anyone with a set of 2 working eyes could see he's much healthier than you, Ethan.
Well, you know, it's interesting. There's a lot of people would disagree with that. Just because somebody's fatter, that means that they're less healthy. To be absolutely honest with you, Ethan may be healthier here. I don't know. Maybe not than Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's older. I don't know. He's gained some weight. I've seen him talk about some of like his health issues before. I have them myself. The reality though is that there's a higher chance of somebody who's like fit to be healthier than somebody who's not fit. It's just the fact of the world. People are like, not necessarily, maybe not necessarily, but most of the time, yes, necessarily. Like, it's going to happen. Like, I'm just telling you, Joe Rogan's probably in much better shape than Ethan and myself. You know, yeah, he might be on HGH, but he's also like 20 years older than both of us. And he's fit. And like, yes, exercising makes you healthier. It's good for your heart health. It's good for your body's health. It's just good for your fucking body. Like, I don't know what to tell you, especially cardio stuff. Really good for you. I'm just telling you. Okay. So.
And if you think that sounds mean, why is it mean when people question Ethan's health, but not mean when they question Joe's? Is it because Ethan really is unhealthy and y'all know in your heart that Joe isn't? Exactly. And who gives a shit if Ethan is unhealthy? I don't care what he eats. I don't care how he lives his life. His lifestyle has no effect on me. However, again, you cannot throw rocks in a glass house. And I'm not taking health advice from either Joe Rogan or Ethan Klein because neither one of them are my doctor. However, if I had to pick one of them to be my doctor, it would definitely not be this one. He went on to say, this MFer is such a...
No, I'd probably pick Ethan as a fat guy. And I'm going to tell you why. And we're going to use this as a fat moment. Okay, one of the biggest issues I have with non-fat doctors is that they don't shut the fuck up about my weight. And I know you're going to be like, well, Papa, you need to lose weight to be healthier. I understand that. You also shut the fuck up, though, okay? And listen, I'm a grown fucking man, okay? I wake up, I work, I pay my taxes, I pay my bills, I get my shit done. And you want to know what? I have a problem with my eating, okay? I eat when I'm stressed and I eat when I'm happy. It's a very terrible vice, okay? I've been eating too much sugar, to be honest with you, lately. It's not good. I know my wife asked me about ice cream. Right? Like, it's bad, right? Sometimes I turn to smoking cigarettes, bro. Like, it's not good. Okay? I quit, but then I like keep relapsing, like mini relapses. It just sucks, and I'm dealing with it myself. But when I go to the fucking doctor and I hear the doctor go, oh, well, you said you'd lose 10 pounds. You know what I do? I don't go back to that doctor again. I just don't. I didn't go to the doctor for a year and a half, and part of it was because I'm tired of the fucking... Like, shut the fuck up. I'm a grown man. I get it. I know I need to handle my shit. I think about it every fucking day. But when I stress out about going to the fucking doctor, it makes me not go. And you want to know what happens? I don't get my medication that I need to make me better. I'm a diabetic. If I don't get the medication that I need, my energy levels plummet. And I have like, my kidneys will probably fucking fail. You know what I'm saying? So you have to, you know, one of the things you have to do first to lose weight sometimes is if your blood sugar's all over the place, is to like get your blood sugar under control. You know what I'm saying? So like, I'd pick Ethan because he probably wouldn't bother me. He would just give me my medication. I could just leave, you know? That's all I'm saying. I don't need the lecture, bro. I'm 31 years old. Shut the fuck up, okay? I'm paying you to shut the fuck up.
That when he got COVID, he threw the kitchen sink at it. If you're so healthy, just write it out like you say a man should. Again, he's never said that. He's never said that. He's never said anything as stupid as men should write out COVID. It's like there's a filter on Ethan's brain that he can only perceive like the most childlike caricatures of people he's beefing with. Like, and should we constitute what Ethan is saying as COVID misinfo? Because vaccinated or not, when you do contract COVID or any sickness, a common cold, you are supposed to throw the kitchen sink at it. You're supposed to take vitamin D, zinc, vitamin C, eat healthy. Like, why is that something to attack someone about? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? For you to demonize throwing the kitchen sink and taking vitamins, like, are you putting people at risk, Ethan? Are people going to read your tweets and think that it's a bad idea to take vitamins when they're sick with anything?
Oh, somebody said, so Joe, apparently he may have said if you're young and healthy, you should be able to ride it out COVID, I believe. Yeah, I know what you're saying. I don't think that's the same as saying that you should ride it out. Should be able to and should are two different things. Like, I'm like, yeah, you should be able to walk to the end of the block. That's just me telling you that, like, you can walk to the end of the block. Me saying you should walk to the end of the block means I'm telling you go walk to the end of the block. You know what I'm saying? So like he was probably saying like, hey, younger people have a higher ability to like be resistant to COVID. So you might just get the sniffles if you're young, or you might get it bad, but you might just get the sniffles. If you're older, there's a higher chance of you fucking whole body sniffling until you're having night sweats and you're waking up screaming. So it's terrifying for your wife. I'll tell you that.
By the way, and tar in his lungs, Joe doesn't smoke cigarettes. And if it's a dig about smoking weed, then we're demonizing weed too. Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, dude.
List of things Ethan Klein
weed.
has no concept of: eating healthy, smoking weed, taking vitamins. Good to know. What this all really comes down to is I genuinely feel bad for anyone, especially like kids who are watching Ethan Klein or reading his tweets and thinking in any way that this guy knows what the fuck he's talking about almost anything. Because I haven't seen one thing in all the tweets I've read from him, one even like small aspect of what he says that has any validity or truth behind it. You almost have to try this hard to be wrong. Like, a normal person is like accidentally wrong about things. Ethan is almost intentionally like, I'm just gonna pick the worst possible takes. I'm going to say the exact opposite of what is true, and I'm going to completely mischaracterize everyone.
I don't think that that's like true. I think the problem this is just me, but I think the problem with Ethan more than anything else is that he doesn't like, he'll hear a thing and he'll want to say it well intentioned, but he doesn't think about that thing being right or wrong necessarily. I just think that he has a very shallow perspective on social topics, to be honest with you.
And honestly, when exactly did it become the standard that rather than countering someone's speech, debunking them, proving them wrong, when did that switch to actually we have to silence our opponent's speech, we have to censor them, we have to erase them, we have to pretend as if they didn't say it rather than say something back to them? What you're really doing is actually proving that your ideas, your opinions, and your stances have no merit whatsoever. They can't stand up on their own. And honestly, Jordan Peterson is not the smartest person on the planet. Joe Rogan is not the healthiest person on
I feel like Jordan Peterson is one of the smartest people
the planet, but Jordan Peterson is smarter than Ethan Klein, and Joe Rogan is healthier than Ethan Klein.
That's true. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's right about things. Like there is like there tends to be like intelligent people tend to be like lacking a little bit of empathy. But
And that's on period. Love you guys. Make sure you subscribe to this channel as well as my second channel. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I post on there way more than I do on here, so you gotta follow.
Hey guys, make sure you subscribe to my balls. I gotta take a piss. Look at the links below. I have a mom and pop podcast, and I don't know what I'm doing.